As children, you are often met with adults who have lost connection with their own sense of value, of well-being, and of worthiness, and from that lackful, disconnected state, they pass their guardedness on to you. Over time, humans evaluate the subject of sexuality endlessly, passing new laws, amending old laws, struggling futilely to come to agreement with others about the correct attitude and approach to the subject, and even more futilely to enforce the laws they created from their lackful positions. Your rules or laws about sexuality diverge from culture to culture, generation to generation, society to society, and religion to religion. But in nearly every case, your laws about this and every other subject tend to hinge on the economic impact of the time. And most important, your sexual laws and rules, like all laws and rules, are made by those who are out of alignment with their broader perspective. If humans were to understand that you are all vibrational beings, and that the law of attraction is bringing to each of you only what you are a vibrational match to, you would not be so concerned about the behavior of others, for you would not fear their behavior negatively impacting you. But in your ignorance about how you do attract what comes, and in your fear that unwanted things will come, you make decisions and laws and rules that are not only impossible to enforce, but that foster even more of the behavior you seek to eliminate. It is always true that the harder you push against what you do not want, the more of what you do not want comes into your experience. By far, the largest amount of pushing against the subject of sexuality comes from people of various religious groups who believe that God has spoken to humans and has given specific instructions regarding the topic. The inconsistency of the message man believes he has received accentuates the impossibility of receiving answers from the pure love of Source when the receiver is standing in a place of blame or guardedness. The very idea that what I have received is correct, while what you or others have received is wrong, holds you in the place of resistance to the very source from which you claim to have received it, which leads us to the most important flawed premise of all. Flawed premise number 14. There is a God who, having considered all things, has come to a final and correct conclusion about everything. This belief, or flawed premise, is at the root of man's continual assault on humanity. It is at the very basis of your wars, your prejudices, your hatred, and your feelings of unworthiness, and it is your primary reason for disallowing your own well-being. This flawed premise is so important, and the ramifications of it are so immense, that we could write an entire book speaking only about man's distorted view of himself, of others, and of that which he calls God. This inaccurate conclusion, that Source, no matter what name you want to give it, is no longer expanding, but instead stands at a place of completion or perfection, demanding your physical compliance with its narrow rules, not only defies the laws of the universe, but then requires another flawed premise and then another and another to try to prop it up. From outside the vibration of the love of his Source, man stands guarded and blameful and guilty and fearful, and then assigns those same lackful characteristics to that which he calls God. Humanity continues to argue about the laws passed down from God as it bends and twists them to suit individual economic desires or needs. Often humans are informed by their religious leaders of the value or necessity of keeping these rules. You are told that the keeping of some rules will bring blessings, while the breaking of others will bring punishment. But when you notice that those who are breaking the laws seem to be thriving, while those who strive to keep them are often suffering greatly, you are told one of the greatest flawed premises of all. Flawed premise number 15. You cannot know while you are still in your physical body the true reward or punishment for your physical actions. Your reward or punishment will be shown to you after your physical death. The loving laws that support all that exist are laws that are universal and therefore always apply, and alignment with them is evident in every moment of alignment, just as misalignment with them is evident in every moment. What feels like love is, and what feels like hate is not love. There are many who want to live in the appropriate way, but sorting out proper behavior from the enormous lists of diversity leaves most people uncertain of the rightness of their path, which leads to yet another flawed premise. Flawed premise number 16. By gathering data about the manifestations or results of the way the people of Earth have lived and are living, we can effectively sort them into absolute piles of right and wrong. And once those determinations have been made, we then have only to enforce those conclusions. And once we get everyone to agree with our determinations, and more important, once we get them to comply with them, we will then have harmony on earth. And so more people die every day in the struggle to defend or prove which way of life is the correct way, with each group claiming to have the absolute approval and support of God. And in not one bit of any of that is any true connection to God. You did not come into this physical body with the intention of taking all of the ideas that exist and whittling them down to a handful of agreed-upon ideas. In fact, that is the very opposite of your pre-birth intention. Instead, you knew that you would be coming into an environment of extreme variety, and that from that platform of difference and choices would be born more new and improved ideas. You understood that the eternal nature of that which humans call God would be enhanced by your participation. You knew that this platform of enormous contrast would be the foundation of the eternal expansion that exists within that which humans call eternity. There is no ending to the expansion of God, and physical humans' participation cannot be separated from that expansion. The most destructive part of humans' confusion about their connection with God or Source is that in their need to find and defend their values, they must push against the values of others. And the very nature of focusing upon and pushing against unwanted aspects of others prevents their alignment with the very goodness and source that they seek. And then they blame the differences in others for the emptiness they feel, which leads us to another flawed premise. Flawed premise number 17. Only very special people, like the founder of our group, can receive the right message from God, and all other messages from all other messengers are therefore incorrect. It is interesting that in the midst of a conversation about sexuality, we would not only uncover one of the biggest flawed premises of all, but that the subject of sexuality is also the avenue through which the existence of humans hinges. A basic feeling of unworthiness, due to the lack of connection with Source, is at the root of the confusion around the subject of sexuality. It is a rare human who has found what he believes to be the appropriate way to behave, who has then also mustered the self-discipline to behave that way, because the natural instincts that are inspired from a much broader knowing run counter to the restricted behavior assigned by human beings.